Welcome to the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting on Tuesday, May 5th at 5:30 p.m. May we have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Long.
Here.
Vice Chair Keever.
Here.
Commissioner Adams.
Here.
Commissioner Bagwell.
Present.
Commissioner Cassiopo. Commissioner Coburn.
Here.
Commissioner Curtis. Commissioner Glenn. Commissioner Lehman.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Welcome this evening. And first off, is there any public comments? Anybody like to come up and, anybody from the public? Nope. For possible action, the approval of minutes. We have the minutes from, I'm blank on the minutes from last month. April 6th, is it? Would anybody like a motion to approve the minutes from April, I believe it's 6th, April 7th?
Did we have minutes?
Did we not have minutes? Hey, give me 1 second.
Oh, we
here.
did.
We're not sure if we have minutes. I think we have minutes.
You have minutes of the April 7th.
So we have minutes from the April 7th, 2015.
Right.
Did anybody have a chance to review them? I don't remember.
I didn't.
Can we just move the minutes to next month, Roger? To give us.
You don't think so?
You know, I looked it up right now, Roger, but I actually don't remember reviewing them. So
Okay.
we did get them.
Two emails, so it might have been in the second.
We did get them, but I don't remember reviewing them. So
We could
You
roll
can,
it to
you
next.
can,
we'll just move it to
Postpone
next
till
month
the
and
next meeting.
put on next month's agenda.
To make it to the next meeting.
Do we need to make a motion for that, or could we, okay, could we, I'll make a motion to move it to the meeting of, well, the June meeting.
6th, 7th, 8th,
Do
9th.
we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, modifications to the agenda. Is there any modifications anybody would like to make? Nope.
You know, well,
Oh,
actually, I would like to make a modification if possible, because I think one helps with the bearing of another. I'd actually like to discuss the park budget before we discuss the property exchange with Mr. Fagan, because I think it has a bearing on what I'm going to say on the property exchange, so.
okay. Seeing as an exchange, I'm kind of interested how it affect the budget, but I guess I have no problem moving it. So anybody have any objections?
No.
Okay. So let's see. We will essentially move the budget to A, correct, and do that right now? Sure. Okay. Any other modifications to the agenda? Vern?
We do have an Eagle Scout here project. It won't take long to go through his particular presentation. If that might be acceptable to the commission, we can get that off the plate early.
Yeah, I think
If that's
absolutely.
okay.
Yeah, I don't
Let's do that.
spare in the details for sure. Okay. Okay. Any others? Okay, so we'll go ahead and start the Eagle project first, and then we'll move with the budget second, and then
Mr. Fagan.
move everything else down. All right. So this is, we'll call it item A now. Jacob Woltz is a Eagle Scout candidate on the Governor's Field dugout and backstop painting project. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Jacob Wools, and like Mr. Long said, I'm an Eagle Scout candidate, and I'm hoping to paint a few dugouts and backstops at Governor's Field. So, just a little overview for you guys. So, we'll be painting 4 dugouts on the 2 major fields at the Governor's Field complex, and in addition to those dugouts, we'll be painting the corresponding backstops. And for the project, we're hoping to get 20 to 30 volunteers there to help us out. So the reason that I chose this project is those facilities are used nearly every day, and deterioration over time has made dents and chips in the paint, and it's pretty obvious. And by fixing that, we'll create a better environment for the baseball players and for our community, and visiting players will leave a better impression on them. So this project, we're not entirely sure what date we'll be able to get it in because of the baseball schedules. But 1 week prior to the project, Mr. Dan Casings and his crew will power wash the dugouts and backstops. The tape and me and my father will be taping down or taping off the dugouts and backstops, and that will be done the Friday night before the project. And the painting will occur nearly all day on a Saturday. And like I said, I'll have between 20 to 30 people from my church and some of my family friends. I anticipate that it will take around 8 hours of our painting, and we'll try to begin around 8 a.m. So there's a few pictures of the backstops and dugouts. As you can see, there's several dents and chips in the wood. And then there's dugout 1, so one of the larger fields, and there are 465 square feet that we'll need to paint green on the backstop, 1,720 square feet that we'll paint green for the 2 dugouts combined, and then the yellow trim is 200 square feet. On field 6, for the backstop, there are 525 square feet that will be painted, then 1,760 square feet for both of the dugouts, and then 180 square feet of the yellow. So I have that listed there, and it will take 14 gallons of green paint and 2 gallons of yellow paint. The same existing paint colors will be used as are in use right now, and Mr. Castings will be providing paint, step stools, ladders, and up to 5 of paint trays, brushes, rollers, and drop cloths. Additional materials that I will be providing include painter's tape, and then the remaining paint brushes, rollers, drop cloths, and paint trays. Then for the volunteers, I'll be providing lunch, snacks, and drinking water. Then safety precautions that we'll be taking is, since due to the fact that we'll be working during the summer, I will be providing water and sunscreen to prevent dehydration and sunburn. Painting masks will also be available for the volunteers. And only adults will be allowed to use the ladders to limit the risk of falling. And we'll also have a first aid kit on hand to treat any other minor injuries. The projected cost of paint provided by Parks and Rec Department, we're not entirely sure. We're leaving that up to Dan Castings. But my estimated expenses will be $340, and I'll be getting donations for those from my scout troop, friends, and family. So, acknowledgements, I'd like to thank Vern Cron and Dan Castings for helping me start this project. Then my parents, Mark and Angie Wools, my scout troop, committee chairman who kind of coordinates all this for me is Doyle Hanks. Then my scout leader, Ben Syndergaard. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Got just a couple, at least comments, if not questions. But anyway, so congratulations. Seems like you're getting to the end. This is the final push, and then you got your Eagle Scout.
Yep.
All right. So you mentioned you're not sure exactly on a date, but when you do, I'm sure we'll get with Vern and Roger, and we'll at least have a date that maybe we could post to see if we can get more volunteers or whatever.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Keevan?
Yes, thank you. I had a question. Have you thought about using social media as a way of drumming up additional volunteers and/or funding for this project?
I actually haven't, but that would be pretty useful.
I was thinking maybe something like GoFundMe. You might get some additional funds, and Facebook or Twitter, or, probably be very beneficial to you.
It'll help for your lunch, nothing else.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments?
Yes,
Commissioner Curtis?
I'm thinking of painting my kitchen green and yellow, and I was wondering, no, just kidding. It's a great job. You'll become quite the painter when you're done.
One last thing, just to kind of close out this agenda item, is that we've had a number of opportunities to work with a lot of Eagle Scouts, and Jacob has approached this project, I think, very carefully and thoughtfully. And so when we see an Eagle Scout do that, we have high hopes that this will be a great project for him and us. So we're anticipating a great job, and he's given nothing but anything that would indicate that he isn't going to do that. So we're pleased to have him. We're excited. I get the pleasure of working with a number of Eagle Scouts over the course of the year, and it's always nice to, talk to these young men and see where they're going and what's going on. So we have high hopes for Jacob here, not only on this project, but as he goes down the road.
All right, good job.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to agenda item B now, which is the Parks and Recreation Commission tentative fiscal year annual budget, and this is with Roger.
All right, well, good evening. Just kind of help you along here a little bit because we've moved the order. This was originally 3F, so it's way at the back of your considerable packet. So if you look for
Always do numbers first.
so if you look for item 3F, we're covering that as 3B. So is everybody found their place? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Couple corrections. I handed out it's kind of like material, an updated spreadsheet regarding the Parks and Recreation Department budget comparison FY14-15. You should have that in front of you. There was an error on the one that was sent out in the packet. This corrects the error. And then along with that was a worksheet for account 355,000, which should look like this. So what you have, the first handout that I just referred to, the Park and Recreation Department budget comparison FY14-15 compared to tentative FY15-16, or I should say proposed FY15-16. It's really kind of an at-a-glance spreadsheet that shows how the fiscal year ending 15 compares to the fiscal year 16, so you can kind of see, we've done this over the years, you can kind of keep track of changes over the course of the years and see how one budget year compares to the other. As you all know, we've been in a process where we've been kind of a status quo budget since about '08, I think. And so there hasn't been a whole lot of change of budget, but you will see there has been some changes in this year's budget, fiscal year ending 16 compared to fiscal year 15. And if you look at that chart, I can kind of point those out to you. If you go to the second page of that chart, you can see that the grand totals in the budget, the expenditure of the budget, fiscal year 14-15 had $4,335,011 in that fiscal year compared to the tentative proposed budget this year, FY15-16, of $4,763,586. And those increases are largely in three accounts. If you go back to that front page, you can see that under park administration, under service and supplies, there's a difference between $40,095 and $70,482. That's basically about a $30,000 difference. That is comprised of, that's for the finance department at the city manager's direction, put a one-time, well, maybe one time, but put an infusion of $30,000 to cover a big special event that's going to happen next fiscal year in the summer called the Epic Mountain Bike Race. And it's estimated that that'll cost the city about $30,000 to assist with that event. So we put it in the Park and Recreation Parks Administration budget. Now, there's some talk that may go somewhere else.
We're gonna do that first.
You know, and so that may come out of this budget and may go to another budget. But the, excuse me, the idea was that the Park and Recreation Department would become the liaison to the Epic Bike Race people who come into town, and we'll be working closely with them. Really doesn't make any difference what budget it comes out of, as far as I'm concerned. If it goes into another budget that's not a general fund budget, that relieves a little bit of the general fund. It probably won't make any difference in terms of who is going to be working, you know, with the Epic Bicycle people, but it might. But the important thing is have some money budgeted somewhere to help assist with that program and to ensure it's going to be a successful program. The other addition, you can see if you go down right below the park administration and go to the fair, you can see that this is the first year that the fair is going to be operated by the Park and Recreation Department. And it's actually the first year that we have developed a typical line item budget for the fair. And so there's a extra amount there of $165,110 that has never been in our budget before. It's a new program for us. And if you go right across from there, you can see that under the MAC, we have a budget for the first 6 months of the operation of the MAC, and that's $132,200. So basically, those three accounts really largely make up for the difference of almost $400,000 difference between fiscal year 14 and fiscal year 15, or fiscal year 14-15 and fiscal year 15-16. So that's kind of your quick glance at it. The other part of the budget that we bring to you folks earlier in the year to get your recommendation is in our capital improvement project budget. And if you remember the last few years, we really haven't had a capital improvement plan with the city because sales tax revenues have been low. Capital projects are largely funded by year-ending balances from the previous year and by estimated revenues, primarily sales tax. It is felt that this year there's going to be sufficient funding that there may be right around $1 million for CIPs this year. What we have done in the past is there's been a little bit money set aside, but it's been considerably less than $1 million. And we've been kind of on a break and fix type of program. And so in other words, what I mean by that is if we had an emergency need in our department, or if anybody had an emergency, they would come to the Internal Finance Committee and kind of plead their case that they needed X amount of dollars to take care of the situation. So it was really more of a reactive type way of budgeting than a proactive way. So the nice thing about, it's good news, I think, that the city's finally at the situation that we may be going back to a capital improvement plan. The way that usually works is representatives from the departments present their capital improvement requests to each other. We have a joint meeting, usually comprised of department heads. We have a chance to explain what our projects are. The finance department runs a tally sheet, spreadsheet on it, and then we all vote individually. And usually the results of the vote, the highest rated plans then are brought forward to the Internal Finance Committee, and then they make a recommendation one way or the other. And so this year, we have had 2 projects recommended by the Internal Finance Committee for our department. One is the deck resurfacing of the aquatics facility, and the other one is a replacement of the pickup truck in our Parks Division, and those are at $35,000 and $45,000 respectively. If you recall, back when we talked about the department CIP plan, the Park and Recreation Commission placed a high value, and I guess a high priority, I should say, on improvements to the aquatics facility. We have a number of improvements there that need to be completed. And after that discussion, staff went back and kind of reprioritized some of our CIPs to reflect that prioritization by the Park and Recreation Commission. And so as a consequence, we were at least able now to have one of these badly needed CIP projects for the aquatics facility be approved by the IFC, and then Thursday, the whole budget is coming to the Board of Supervisors, and it remains to be seen what the Board of Supervisors decides to do with, the capital project. The IFC is also, if you look down towards the end of my staff report, is also recommending funding the departmental supplemental request for 2 part-time positions. It'll be shared by our Recreation Division, 50-57, and our Sports Recreation Division, 50-60. And that's basically to accommodate what we have is ongoing program growth in a lot of our programs right now, and anticipated program growth as a result of the MAC coming online. So these 2 projects will be funded out of those 2 budget units, just as they are currently now. When we have a softball program that's funded through our sports program, even though the softball program is held up at Centennial Park, John D. Winter Centennial Park, is still funded out of our sports program. Likewise, our youth basketball program, which is held here in the community center, is not funded by the community center, it's funded by our sports program. And related to that, on our recreation side, 50-57, that is largely our youth and adult activities. To give you an example, would be our before school and after school programs. Largely they're held here in the community center, or at the Marv Texera Pavilion, or in Mills Park. They have some activities in the pool, activities in the theater, but they're not funded by those facilities. They're funded by that budget unit that manages those programs. So I hope that is clear, clear as mud, I guess, to everybody. It's just a way that we budget that way, and one of the reasons we budget that way is that, as you know, we have a directive through our master plan that we are to achieve 100% direct cost recovery of those type of programs. And we really view, for a large extent, the facilities that the programs are held in, by a large extent, because they're used for many other type of programs, as kind of an overhead indirect cost. So we really focus on the salaries involved, the wages involved that directly supervise and put those programs on, the supplies and materials that are used for those type of programs, as well as in our cost recovery calculations. And I think I mentioned the $30,000 to park administration for the Epic Mountain Bike Ride, which may change, as I mentioned before. At this point, are there any questions before we move on?
Commissioner Bagwell.
Okay, so one, I have a few.
Go for it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in reviewing the budget, one thing that I noticed is that the material that was provided in our packets is representative probably of data that you submitted to the Finance Department at a certain point in time, and the Finance Department has actually submitted a different budgetary numbers to us as the Board of Supervisors and to the Department of Taxation. So there is, and the reason that I wanted to move the item forward is to have some understanding before we talk about the other item that, so for instance, in your budget, the undesignated money in the capital outlay in the parks portion of quality of life, only had 11,000, but there's actually 14,000 currently projected. And additionally, last month's sales tax came in, again, higher than projected. So I also believe this number's going to climb some more. And then correspondingly, in the quality of life open space portion, the availability of funds to be able to purchase land has increased. So I just wanted to make clear that while previously we were under the impression there wasn't sufficient funds to buy the Clear Creek property with open space or capital outlay for parks, we may indeed have sufficient money, but I won't know, I don't think we have the appraisals. We don't have the appraisals yet. So what I wanted to do is kind of assure you that it doesn't mean if we go one way on the other project that there's not an ability to purchase that property. So I just wanted to note that the undesignated in the budget, and I'm sorry that, again, it's just timing for staff to be able to have later numbers and everybody moving along, but there's a potential to be able to accomplish that. And then the Epic Ride, as Roger indicated, the budget currently has 30,000 allocated in here of general fund dollars for the Epic Ride, and so that may or may not stay that way, but I wanted you all to know that that may move to another funding source, it may not. I don't know where anybody else is voting or doing, so that may not happen. Can you tell me, though, we had a Moss Adams audit that dealt with the setting of fees and rates and cost recoveries. And so in the budget, you have requested $12,842 for the community center here as a janitorial, yet not done a cost recovery. Where in the other two, the 50/50 and the 50/57, you're indicating there
Right.
will be cost recovery.
That's a good question. And I'd like to maybe even expound upon a little bit what you mentioned in your first comments too.
Yeah.
But, we'll do that one first. And I did fail to mention.
Hey, Roger,
that's
could
in
you
there
do the
too.
mic?
That we have $12,800. We're asking for a part-time, not to exceed 1,039 hours, part-time custodian for the community center. That's a position that we had in the budget back, I think it was probably removed from the budget back in fiscal year 10. And that was part of our budget cutting processes. We're going through and trying to reduce the budget. We feel it's important to put that back in because what it results in is that we have our full-time employees. We have 2 full-time employees that really run the community center that are really working from about 5 in the morning, sometimes till about 11 o'clock at night, off and on sporadically, doing that because we don't have somebody can open up this building at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that's when, we need to have the building opened up at 6 in the morning because we have early activities in the facility. So we're really, quite frankly, burning out some of our full-time employees. So we felt like with, as you mentioned, kind of a rosier projection in sales tax revenues, that maybe it's time to take a look at putting that position back in and reinstituting that project. Now, the other part of your comment or your question was, how come that's not figured into a cost recovery? Because that individual is not assigned to one program, directly to a program. He's more of an overhead cost, and that gets back to what I was trying to explain in the beginning, that the programs are not tied to a facility, but the facility accommodates many, many programs. And a lot of the programs that the community center staff actually facilitates are free programs. For instance, the setup of this room in here. There's no cost recovery. We get no money, to offset the cost of us setting up the room. The individual will be coming in the morning, and if we have a Board of Supervisors meeting, they need to get in here early to set the meeting up for the Board of Supervisors, particularly if we had a meeting like this the night before. So they have a choice. Either they have to tear down and reset the meeting up at 9 o'clock, from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night, or they come in early in the morning and do it. So that position is not tied to programs. It's tied to what I call the indirect cost, or think of it in this term, sort of the overhead cost of support staff to support all the other programs. Does that kind of answer your question?
To a point, I see what you're trying to indicate here, but one of the issues for me is the theater is a portion of the
Right.
community center. The gym is a portion of the community center, and those are fee-based. And when I look at the theater, it's running a cost recovery of 38.9%, and the next closest program is running at 64%. So really, the question for me is, should we look at, because one of the issues out of the Moss Adams was for us to evaluate. And so is there something we should be evaluating to determine whether an additional recovery should occur in the theater services? Because what it's appearing to me is when I looked at all of your youth sports, those were pretty close. I mean, we were running 90, 95%. So all of our children's programs and adult basketballs or
Right.
things like that are paying for themselves, but the theater is not.
Right.
And so the question becomes, if we want to be able to start doing more of the capital outlay that we need so desperately in the parks, we need to start looking at some of the operational issues. And I don't think we can just keep passing on that and just saying it's okay, because we're not going to get to the capital projects. And when we start adding more general fund into the operational side, that's less you have available for us to put to capital. And so really my question is for all of us, and maybe we can talk about it under future agenda items, is that we actually study what's going on in the theater programs.
If I may comment, in that report, is that setting fees? Is that what that's doing?
Is that what?
The Moss Adams
No.
report?
it told us to look at it.
It was looking at efficiencies in the operations of facilities,
Okay, so,
not setting fees.
because, our responsibilities, I understand it, we went through this once before, as Parks Commission is, while we're doing the budget, we also set the fees. So if you're gonna change the fees, we need to recommend to the Board of Supervisors what those fees are gonna be. So I don't see them here. Shouldn't we be
Well,
looking at the fees?
yeah, let me take that. And I don't disagree with you, what you're saying. Philosophically, the question is, should the theater be operating on the same playing field as other programs? In the past, and Donna, you've been around for a long time, Chuck, you have too, we have brought fees and charges to the commission, and we developed, with the commission's assistance, we developed a fee and charges philosophy, and we brought to the Board of Supervisors, and they approved it. Traditionally, the board has seen the theater operate differently. They've seen a different philosophy for the theater. Some of it might be due to political pressure, maybe, that they have felt, or just the difference in expectations of what a theater can recoup as opposed to a youth sports program. But traditionally, the board has wanted to keep the theater fees as low as possible in an effort to promote theatrical and cultural type activities in the facility. And I'm not saying that's right, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that has been traditionally with the Board of Supervisors, their philosophy on setting fees for the theater. In fact, we give a very steep discount to nonprofit organizations that use this facility. And the board has, in the past, the board has gone into this with their eyes wide open, knowing that it's going to increase the subsidy by the general fund to allow those type of uses in this facility. But they felt that since there are very few facilities of this nature in the community that can host a lot of those events and a lot of those type of programs and projects, that it would be a hardship on the nonprofit organizations that really depend on this facility. And again, I'm not taking one side or the other. I'm just kind of giving you sort of the history of how the board has treated these in the past. For instance, a nonprofit theatrical project in here will get a 50% discount on the fees, and that has been by the direction of the board. Now, if the new board wants to, if they want to examine that and basically give direction to staff and the Park and Recreation Commission to take another look at that, an effort to increase fees, that's their prerogative, and we certainly will do that. We haven't brought it with the budget in the last several years because, quite frankly, every time we bring it to the board in the past, the board has said no. We're not going to do that, that it is important that they subsidize these type of activities to ensure their success.
Can you tell me is the issue at the community center is because 95% of the theater activities are all nonprofit, and therefore you're unable to recover the costs? And maybe, again, that's something, and I'll be discussing this on Thursday, too. I just don't think it's right not to discuss it here at the Parks and Rec, and then bring it up on Thursday and not speak with all of you,
And I
so.
think we've talked over the last few years also that there's a few things where the whole theater is behind its time and needs a facelift, and I think that where that's kind of weighed negatively against like prospective new people wanting to rent it just because it's not capable.
Well, you mentioned the high percentage of nonprofits using the facility. It's very high. I'm not sure it's 90% or 95% of it. It's very high. And keep in mind, too, in addition to that, we have a joint use agreement with the school district that provides free use by the school district. And of the nonprofits that use our theater, probably at least 50% of that use is by the school district. And so that's free that we have no opportunity to try to recapture. So if you say, okay, well, let's try to make up for that by charging everybody a little bit more, the concern has been in the past that you'll charge people you'll charge people to a certain degree where they can't afford to use the facility. So things like Pinkerton, their ballet, Nutcracker, thank you, the Peanut Cracker, those type of events that will basically charge, beyond their means of being able to afford to use the facility. Now, is that still true? I don't
Right.
know. But, that, it is, in large extent, a lot of it is due to the free use of this facility, not only by the school district, but also by the city as well. As mentioned, the meetings that we have in here, those type of activities as well.
So Commissioner Adams, I know you had maybe a comment there.
Roger covered it. I was just going to bring up the school district and the fact that in our previous conversations, the school district has been a big factor in it. And then, like you said again, the other programs that we had, was it Stephanie? Arigati, she was in, and we've been over a lot of the stuff with them, and basically everything we've heard, or I've heard in the last 6-7 years has been, we'll just price them out of the market if we.
Well, except for, again, maybe because I have more knowledge. So we discount the facility to 50% to them, and on top of it, we turn around and pay them under a different granting source to put the project on. So maybe for me, it's much, and again, I don't know that you all knew that, is they come to the redevelopment agency and receive funding to put the event on at the facility. So it's kind of backwards to me that the true cost is not identified anywhere.
Right.
Because the balls are kind of in the air, as one might say, and we're robbing Peter and paying Paul. But the other issue for me is those events are fee-based. And I really find it hard to believe that charging $5 more for a ticket is going to mean that the event can't occur. Because I think that maybe we were all correct. Maybe the board was right and everyone during the economic slumps and things were not well, and so we wanted to encourage cultural events in our community, and that was a good way to do it. I'm just indicating that it's time that we examine the policy across the system of what we give for free and then also give subsidies and discounts. And to tell you the truth, I'd rather set the rate at what we're going to charge and not discount it then. I'd rather things be real. And so it doesn't look like the fee is $500 and nobody's ever paid $500 because they paid $250, if you can see what I'm after here. I'd rather begin to look at doing that. So I just wanted to let you know those will be questions that I bring up and work at with the Board of Supervisors on Thursday. And then, can you tell me what's happening?
Okay, sure. What is happening is a publication that we used to put out, probably remembered, it was a supplement to the newspaper, and it had all of our programs involved in it. So it was a way of reaching out to the public so they, make them aware of marketing our programs. That also went by the wayside when we made budget cuts. We've eliminated a position that was largely in charge. One of their duties was in charge of that. So we did away with that position. We stopped making the publication. We reduced the amount of money on the publication, on the what is happening publication. We reduced that amount, but we left it in there because, we've left it in there because it's also, we use that for publication if we're doing flyers or if we're putting out flyers and advertisements in the schools, PGs program and that type of thing, PGs, that helps us fund that. Now, one of the things that we're talking about doing is trying to reinstitute what is happening or what's happening, because we felt like that ever since we cut that out is that it really harmed some of the participation in some of our programs. Carson City's really pretty difficult to try to market in. We don't have a strong television presence, we don't have a strong radio presence, and most people get their information from the newspaper or online. So our thought is that maybe we need to reinstitute what's happening and try to find another way, maybe a smarter way of trying to continue that program and get those publications out there without having to be a significant portion of one dedicated staff member to do that.
Can I keep going?
So what does that mean? I'm sorry.
Well,
Are you
see-
gonna do it or what?
Well,
Yeah, we're looking into doing that. We're, in fact, right now, our recreation staff has had conversations with the Nevada Appeal and are looking at what the cost might be to reinstitute that.
and can you tell me so I'm just going to say what these questions are because I can see dollars within your detail, and sorry, I'm kind of a numbers wonk, but I'm actually looking at every single line of expenditure and trying to figure out where we're going here. So what is bus rental?
Okay. Bus rental is basically what we pay. In the past, we used to pay the school district to bus our children in special activities during our summer camp programs primarily. We take kids up to Nevada Beach, have a day up there, take them out to the Sparks Marina or, different places in the area. And that was an extra fee that we charged the kids in our summer camp programs. But we don't have buses, so we have, in the past, rented buses from the school district to do that. Now we've entered into an agreement with Silver State Charter School, and they're providing that at considerably reduced cost over what the school district was charging us.
So we give the school district this facility for free, but they charge us for buses. No, I got it.
Well, no, that's actually a fair
It's true.
statement.
I mean,
It's
I don't
true.
get it. Okay.
But at the same time, we get free facilities from the school district.
Oh,
too,
we
you know.
do?
Yeah, we've had free use of their gymnasiums to run some of our programs.
Okay.
And I think that's probably a good point to talk about too, a little bit, is that this joint use agreement has been a very beneficial agreement, not just for the city and not just for the school district, but I think for the community as a whole. Because what that has allowed this community to do, and we're kind of unique for a city our size, that we have one school district, one city county. And so the taxpayers are the same people. The same taxpayers are paying their property taxes for the school and for the city. And what it has really allowed us to do, I think, both us and the school district, is to maximize the use of our facilities and not duplicate our facilities. I can tell you that a lot of communities this size, the school district will have their own auditorium, their own theater, they'll have their own swimming pool, they'll have, those type of public facilities that the taxpayer has to also fund and pay for. And Carson City, by entering into this interlocal agreement, has been able to reduce that, so we're not duplicating facilities, and we're, maximizing the efficiency and the use of those facilities. So I think overall, that has been a very good thing for the community.
I think we're rare where we work jointly with the school district, even as the Board of Supervisors. I think we are a fortunate community to try and do that. But on your calculations for the MAC, I'm assuming that's a 6-month allocation. But can you tell me, how did you assume the revenues would be 40,200 in use fees and 11,000 in contract classes? I mean, what methodology or basis did you use to think that much was going to come in the first write-off?
6 months.
Yeah, I'm not that I'm thinking you're high, but you might be high. But
Budget to a certain degree, particularly on a
Brand
new
new.
program, is a little bit of a guessing game. It's a guesstimate to a certain degree, and a budget is a plan. And I mean, after a while, as you really get further into the running operations of the facility, you tend to fine-hone it, and you tend to get closer on what you really think. Yeah, I don't have the paperwork that we used, but basically we sat down and we kind of estimated, what we think the use of the facility might be, how many hours a day are we going to be open? What are the peak hours of the facility? What kind of programs are we going to have in there? Are we going to charge, charging back to the program for the use of that facility, because we know that this is a brand-new facility that needs some cost recovery to it. The number of tournaments we might expect to have in the first 6 months of the facility, what our tournament fee would be, how many teams we think we'd play. It's going through all that. It's just a mental exercise trying to put all that together. And we may be close, we may be right on, or we may be way off, but I don't think we're going to be way off. Now, remember that the first 6 months of that facility is probably going to be the highest use of that facility. Those facilities typically are used more during the winter months, and it's going to be a brand-new facility, so there'll
everybody
be
wants to
kind of
go
that
there?
new shiny thing to it too. So, is it scientific? No, it's kind of more of an art than it is a science. And, I think, as I mentioned before, as we go further along in the operations of that facility, we'll get tighter and tighter and closer on that budget, just like we do on all of ours. Even when we start a new program, let's say we started a kids dodgeball program, you have to kind of go through that, make some assumptions, think about how many people you think are going to enroll, what are going to be your direct costs, what you think your fees should be to cover those direct costs. And so it's always a little bit of a guessing game, but, it's, we think it's pretty good.
Commissioner Curtis.
Yeah, we also had a study done. Now, it was based on the big hoo-ha that we were gonna build, originally. But there was a study done, I forget his name, but, I don't know whether he fine-tuned that for this facility that we're building now, or some size in between, or what, but I remember there was a revenue study.
Yeah, we did. We had a couple done. We had one done, the big hoorah that you referred to as the rec center, the full-fledged rec center. And his name is Ken Ballard, and his company is Ballard King. They're a consulting firm out of Denver, Colorado that provides management consulting for recreational facilities. And they do a lot of the rec centers in the Rocky Mountain area and even in the Midwest, provide a lot of consulting services. So we employed them. Well, then, as the rec center kept morphing into different variations, after a while, some of those assumptions you make on a rec center compared to a MAC no longer really hold true, because you don't have as much drop-in use, and you don't have as many attractions in terms of weight rooms and fitness rooms and pools and climbing walls and that type of thing. Hopefully someday the MAC may get to that. But so we kind of fine-tuned it, and we actually had them do a study a few years ago that was more scaled down MAC. But even at that point, even after that, the MAC had evolved a little bit. And quite frankly, we got to the point where we didn't want to keep throwing money at consultants every time we did a new plan. So we kind of took some of this information and tried to adapt it as best as we could.
Well, and I'm okay tonight not having the exactness of how you came to those estimates, but just as a heads up, maybe you can give me your estimates on what you guys were planning for Thursday's
Okay.
meeting when we look at that, so. And then the other piece of the budget that's really not here tonight is actually the other portion of quality of life funds that could be used in the open space to purchase land too. So again,
Can I comment?
there's,
And the reason you don't have that, there are two aspects
Right.
of our department that this organization, this commission doesn't have purview over. One is the open space program, that's an area that, and the other one is the cemetery. And so we don't bring the open space budget to the Park and Recreation Commission. We go through a very similar exercise with the Open Space Advisory Committee, on their budget.
and again, it's just a point of information on that. Like you said, we're not taking any votes here or anything. It's more just a public comment that they have a $50,000 budget for land acquisition and $151,395 that's undesignated projects. So that's just for you to know, that's all. It's not.
So to give you the story in the background, so that is correct. The open space program has budgeted $50,000 in our land acquisition account. We fully expect to pay for appraisals if needed. Appraisals should cost maybe $5,000 to $10,000, so there is a cushion to pay the difference in the appraised value between properties. As for the remainder amount, when we went through the budget process with the Open Space Advisory Committee in March, there's several projects that we're looking at down the line. One of the big ones that's coming up probably first is the proposal of a park ranger. And so we could not take that money right now and put it into salaries when it is not an approved position. But we are moving, the Open Space Advisory Committee has approved it, then there's a process of the Internal Finance Committee and the Board of Supervisors. So the Open Space Advisory Committee does intend on using that money.
One other comment, I see what was my comment going to be.
Okay, and then, so yeah, Roger, go ahead with your comment, and after that, I think maybe we could start moving forward and get into the next item.
Questions? Well, and so what you have is, if you go through your packet, and some of this is just kind of, for your information, but the next spreadsheet on your packet, if you go through that, you'll see a chart that shows cost allocation of personnel. And we bring this to you every year. It hasn't fluctuated. I don't think it's changed in the last couple of years, but what we do is we try to make a determination, we'll ask our employees, how much of your time do you think you spend on a certain budget unit or a certain function in our operations, so we can kind of get an idea, because we want to kind of accurately, as best as we can, without being too scientific about it, charge and allocate the funds appropriate to the appropriate department. So if you look down the row here, and you can see the names of the employees who are allocated in these different functions, and you look down the columns, and you can see where they're assigned to, and I'll just point out mine, since it's the first one. We charge 15% of my time to the open space project. We charge 5% of my time to the quality of life maintenance program, and 80% of my time goes to parks administration, which, should add up to 100%. So you can just see that across the line. You can see the various allocations and how we charge that out. If there's any questions, I'll just move on. It's more of an internal thing.
I think we're good, other than Vern's is 120, so.
Well, you know what? Vern puts out 120.
Yeah, okay, he put,
Yeah. And then I want to go forward and kind of skip through a lot of the line items, because we could talk all night about line items, and we did cover quite a few of them already anyways. But I wanted to point out to you, you'll have a sheet that looks like this, kind of a balance sheet, spreadsheet. And this is basically our quality of life fund. And on the page on the left is the fiscal year 2016 budget, and on the right is the fiscal year 2015. So it gives you a good, gives you sort of a good opportunity to compare the fiscal years one to the other. If you look over on the right, you can see that all the projects in the middle or the bottom, the middle of the text of the form are all filled out. And then you look over on the left and you see zeros, and you don't see project names. And that can be a little disconcerting to staff, but that's the way we budget. You know, all those projects are carryover projects, and we really don't know the final numbers on those projects until they carry over about midsummer. So we're not quite shooting in the dark. You know, it's not like we don't know, we don't have a clue of how much money we have. We have a pretty good idea of how much money we have based on what we spent on the prior year. But all those numbers that you see on fiscal year 15 under projects will get repopulated as a carryover into fiscal year 16. And then just to point out a couple other items in terms of the budget. Do you have a question? Okay. If you look at the bottom line, the ending balance as of June 30th, 2015 for each one of those funds, park maintenance, park capital, and open space, then you go back to the top of fiscal year 2016, you can see that the ending fund balance becomes, this is not rocket science, but it becomes the starting balance for that fund for the next fiscal year. And by now, I'm sure you all have an understanding that the quality of life fund is, you know, 3 separate accounts, and they're divided up into that 40%, 40%, and 20% in terms of allocation. And kind of going down to the bottom of under projects, you'll see a transfer out to the general fund. That's basically the transfer from quality of life to offset the cost of operating the aquatics facility. And then you have transfer out debt service, and that's basically the bond for the the bond we have for the MAC, and then a leftover bond that we have for open space to start the program. So that's kind of where we are on quality of life.
Did you say that the transfer to the general fund was for the aquatic center, or did you mean cost allocation?
No, it's actually a transfer from quality of life to the general fund.
But isn't it for
Yes.
cost allocation, not for the aquatic center? It's your cost allocation charge.
It is.
Yeah, your indirects, not aquatic.
It is to offset the cost to the general fund for operating the aquatics facility.
Where is that other one she's talking about?
Yeah,
Which one?
The other cost of the
I don't
VA,
understand.
all that.
Yeah, no, your
Oh,
indirects.
okay. Oh, are you talking about, you're referring to the,
So where's your indirects? That's what I thought your transfer out to
Okay.
general fund is,
that
because
is,
that's how we cost recover.
right, that is,
Because otherwise you're missing a chunk.
oh, no, you know what? I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
Okay.
That is the cost for
For cost
providing internal
allocation.
services cost allocation. Yep. I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, uh-oh, we have
Yeah.
a hole.
Yep, you're right. And I guess the other one to point out too is, you'll see too that the Boys and Girls Club
Yes.
receives an annual allocation up to $120,000 a year.
On the cost allocation, I want you to know, our new supervisor to know, that we went through quite a battle on that, because we didn't think that this special fund was subject to that. And so for a long time, the commission tried to fight the good fight to keep that out, but we didn't win. So,
Well, actually, we won a little bit, because
Yeah,
I
you
actually went
reduced
and
it.
testified with Pete Livermore when he had the piece of legislation. And so what we ended up getting to negotiate with the legislature is that it would be cost allocated in the same manner as federal grants. So you were able to cut this down a good $40,000 from what you used to pay. So
In fact,
it was a good compromise to the, so we
and-
were able to
and
save
really
some.
what was kind that were assigned to the Board of Supervisors and the city manager, you know, those costs were eliminated.
Any questions or comments from the
on the
commission?
budget?
Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted to I appreciate the fact that you put the titles of the departments on them, because we don't know the numbers. God, I'm not doing the budget anymore like I used to, so I don't know the numbers and what they mean of that. I noticed, and you've also started putting revenues in. I hadn't seen that before, I don't believe, where you've shown, where we've captured, and for the new programs too. And the more we could do that, the more, I think, better the budget is in terms of our ability to make decisions, because we can say, oh, well, that's making some money. So I don't know, I know you don't do it that way. I mean, the budget I did was this thick, you know, for a city. And, you know, this is yours for your department, and it's no, there's no verbiage in it, there's nothing, you know, it's just numbers. But anyway, the more it can illustrate what's really going on, the better, so I appreciate that, and we'll keep moving it along.
Actually, Daria Worth remembered your comment from last year, and we were putting the budget together, and she goes, well, I've got to put the titles on there, because Donna Curtis made a remark last year about that, so you can thank her.
And I will say from my perspective and with the board, that I hope in the future you'll start seeing some changes in the way in which we present budgets, even because I think that, as you said, just giving someone a bunch of numbers has no meaning to the general public. And so I hope to work with our city manager to do some different presentations in the future, because I do think, I call them fund maps. Like you said, that says, here's my service, here's how much it costs. And I think those are good presentations for the public to understand and appreciate what it is that we do. And then, so you're right, maybe we can keep moving forward every year, get a little bit better.
And just one other comment that I failed to mention at the outset. There is a little bit of disconnect in some of the numbers in the budget pages as opposed to what we have on the front sheet. And that goes back to a little bit what Lori said, is that the original tentative budget was put together at the end of December, because you had a deadline, you had to have it in by, I think, in May to the state, kind of as a placeholder. Well, during that time, the departments are still putting together their, you know, more specific budget. And this is where we've had, the budget that I show here reflects the increases in the, you know, the two part-time positions. And also reflects the addition to the Epic Ride and, you know, the MAC and those type of things. So that's why there's some numbers that aren't quite, they're close, but they're not all of them 100%.
Do you have any other comments or questions? So let's open up to the public. Is there any questions or comments about the budget? All right, does anybody have a recommendation to move this onto the Board of Supervisors? I'll do it.
Okay.
Oh, Chuck, go for it.
Okay, I recommend for action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the Parks and Recreation Department tentative fiscal year 2015-2016 annual budget.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I'm going to vote aye, but again, for on the record, it doesn't mean I'm going to stick with 100% of what's it. I just feel it's only right to tell you in
Okay.
advance.
I'm
but-
sure as we move it on to the Board of Supervisors, it's gonna
Yeah,
get
that's it. I don't want to
manipulated.
be committed, exactly. I just want to let you know there might be a few tweaks that I work towards.
Okay. Well, thank you. So we'll move on to item C, is a possible action to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to pursue a possible land exchange with Mr. Fagan for 20 acres of land that he owns on US Highway 50 near Clear Creek Interchange. It's APN 007-051-81 for a vacant park property located on 1020 Buzzy's Ranch Road. And that's APN 010-611-01, and this was with Ann Bollinger. Hi, Ann.
Hello. As the item in front of you states, the meeting tonight also was an opportunity for a public hearing for the neighbors. I worked with the Planning Division on the standard noticing policies, which includes 300 feet from the subject parcel or 30 unique parcels, unique owners. So a letter as well as a copy of the staff report was sent last week at the same time as the packets. To date, I have not heard any comments either. However, we have had communications with the school district, and they would like to maintain school access on the backside. And so, let's see. In this report, there's additional information than provided to you last time. At the last meeting, there's background on each individual property. There's the background information included, the characteristics of the property up near the Clear Creek interchange, the value of it, which in this case would be trails and perhaps a trailhead facility if the Clear Creek trailhead did not work out for some reason. And then I also provided information to you on the Buzzy's Ranch property, which is almost 1 acre, it's 0.95. And the purpose that we purchased it with residential construction tax was school access. And that background information is in your packet this evening on the recommendation and approval by the board in 1997 and why we purchased it. The deed for that parcel does provide the ability to dispose of it. What it does say, however, that, this is in your staff report, that if the property is used for any other purpose than a park site, then in that event, its successors, heirs, and assigns agree by the CCNRs for the subdivision. So that would be passed on to Michael Fagan. The zoning in that area is 21,000 square foot lots, and so compared to the almost 1 acre, that would only be one residential unit on this lot. This neighborhood also, when we acquired this property for school access, we acquired several other parks in the area, including the Hidden Meadows Trailhead across the street, parts of the Riverview Park wetlands area, parts of the Mexican Ditch Trail, the Zero Skate Park. Also, since then, the Open Space Program has purchased over 400 acres. So this particular neighborhood is very rich in its parks and open space facilities. And the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the survey that was conducted at that time, there was only modest interest for an additional park facility, and there was no proposed actions. Working with the DA's office, we have confirmed that the parcel up on Clear Creek would be eligible for RCT funding. This is not a proposal to use the RCT funding that's available to purchase that, but theoretically, it could be used to purchase that. This transaction would be a trade. And so there's not a financial change of money, except if there's a difference that open space would owe to Michael Fagan and the difference of the value. But the appraisals would tell us what the value is, so we can justify that transaction. Again, the significance of the Clear Creek parcel would be for a trail. And so the question in front of you this evening, as well as if there's any other members from the public in the neighborhood that want to speak on this item, is for the committee to decide whether the property on Highway 50 meets the purpose and goals of the Parks Division, and if the parcel should be exchanged subject to a school access easement. And then, depending on your action this evening, it would go on to the Board of Supervisors to continue that transaction, possible transaction.
Right, that's what I was going to say. And I just want to interject that, and I'm glad you said possible, I was going to jump on that, but if the commission decides to explore this further and direct staff to move forward, to look at the feasibility of this transaction, we'll bring it to the board. As Ann said, appraisals will have to be done. It doesn't mean your action tonight is saying we are going to exchange the property. It's all going to depend on what the appraisals say as well. We don't really have a feel how close they're going to be in terms of value at this point. But if one side is enormously more valuable than the other, there may have to be cash one way or the other. And then the question would be, and particularly on our side, is do we have the means to do that as well? So, but I guess what I'm trying to tell you tonight is if you direct staff to move forward, it does not mean at this point that we will enter into an exchange with Mr. Fagan.
Sure, understood. Commissioner Kieber?
Yeah, I have a question. Based on Roger's last statement, the wording here is a little misleading. It says possible land exchange. It doesn't mention that there'd be any monetary cost associated with the change or the exchange. And so what I was thinking was would be associated with, we'd swap the land, we might have to pay for the appraisal, we might have to pay to transfer the name from the properties from one deed to the other. So I'm thinking that if we go ahead, we need to reword this a little and somehow mention the financial implications that are gonna, might result from it.
I guess she wants me to answer. She's looking at me like, answer that question, Roger.
No,
Well,
it was more a statement, how I was reading,
Yeah.
Sure.
how I was reading this, and how some of the people I know who were reading it out in the public, they also saw it as a straight land
Okay.
exchange, no money other than what I mentioned would be exchanged.
Well, I think you bring up a good point, and I can understand the confusion. Our thought of an exchange is an exchange and exchange. It could be land for land, it could be land and money for land, it could, it could be, just money for land. It's, I guess it's not an exchange if you're then it's just a purchase.
You're buying it.
But we realize that until we have we understand that until we have an appraisal, we don't know to what extent, if any, there may be, a financial aspect to it too. I mean, obviously, we know that we're gonna have to pay for the cost of an appraisal.
Right.
And, for recording of deeds and that type of thing, but we don't know at this point if there's gonna be, any financial involvement, infusion included in the exchange or not. So that's why we didn't put the money part in there.
I think it was important and that we needed to at least have a heads up on it because, that could actually color how somebody would vote on this or how they think about it. Because I was wondering myself, how come somebody would trade 20 acres for less than 1 acre without any financial remuneration?
Well, again, tonight, if you approve this tonight, it doesn't mean that we're gonna do the exchange. It just simply means to explore it further, to move forward. The next step, as mentioned, if we get the approval by the Board of Supervisors, then it would be to get the approval to hire an appraiser to do the appraisal. And then at that point, then we'll know if it's in our best interest to enter into that type of an exchange based on the appraisals. So
Do you-
tonight, so go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, do you have a feel, like just kind of a gut feel for approximate evaluations of each of the lands?
I don't. You know what the realtors.
What I can provide you now is old data, but there is a property just to the north of this that in 2008, we paid $10,000 per acre. This is up on Clear Creek. So roughly, if you want to use that number, that would be a minimal cost of $200,000. This parcel in front of you tonight has better access than that one did. So we're probably looking at a greater dollar amount.
But we just, we're really hesitate to hazard a guess.
Yeah, and I understand. So, is there any other comments or questions? Like, I'm fine, I support it, so I just assume move it forward. And ultimately, it boils down to getting the two items appraised and then reviewing it to whether it makes sense or not, I guess, from a fiscal or maybe a pure trade standpoint. Commissioner Bagwell?
I have a comment. So during the last meeting, I brought up that we really needed to validate the use of residential construction tax because I am very adamant that we spend money the way that taxes are purported. And so if you tell the public this is the purpose of a tax, that's the way you spend it. So before the legislature, and maybe somebody else thought the same thing as me, because it's kind of interesting, there's Assembly Bill 25, which is changing the residential construction tax. Because the Builders Association and the League of Cities went in and did the bill together, because in essence, the builders group wanted to eliminate it because it was being misspent. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. I think that many of the governmental entities were trying to play loose with the interpretations in the statute to meet their needs. And that's kind of where this one goes. And so the legislature has redefined, and it specifically says, the purpose of the tax is to raise revenue to enable the cities and counties to provide neighborhood parks and facilities for parks which are required by the residents of those apartments, houses, mobile homes, and residents. So under this interpretation that they've done to make it clear to everyone what the intent of residential construction tax, we would not be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to buy Clear Creek because no residential construction tax occurred from the residents, the apartment, the houses, the mobile homes, or the residents from where the tax was collected. This tax was put in so that cities and counties could build parks in their master planned developments. That's its purpose. And so I'm going to vote no, because even though I wanted to point out that there is money in other sources earlier to do it right. Purchase the land correctly. So I don't have any problem with this committee being in favor of trying to pursue a purchase of Mr. Fagan's property. I don't. I think it's great. It fits in your master plans, but I'm going to vote no because you have to do with the taxes what you should do with them. And that's, I'm just going to say that, and that's the way I'll
Mr. Chair?
vote Thursday.
Sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, I kind of missed the first part of what you were saying. You're saying this is legislation that has been passed?
It's passed the assembly completely. It is
Okay, but it
passed out
hasn't
of Senate
been signed
Government
into law.
Affairs. It is on the general, what they call general file, which is the full Senate floor tomorrow, and then on to the governor.
Okay.
It is effective upon passage and approval. So, signed by the governor, which is within 10 days or so after that maximum. There is no way this will get to the Board of Supervisors, and anyway.
Right.
It doesn't
But-
really matter to me because it's the intent of the law in the first place.
Well,
So-
the intent has been that whatever is built is still a public park. It is not a park for those residents. Is that changed?
true. No, you're correct.
No, the intent of the original legislation, I went and listened to all the hearings. So the intent versus taking the reading of the law. So Carson City's one of the rare entities that decided to make the whole city a park district. If you were to actually go back, though, it also says, you know, you have to spend it all within 75% of build-out, which this city has decided we're never built out, therefore we don't have to spend the money. That's not the intent. And so, again, for me, we each can vote however we want, but I'm not going to vote for something that I know not to be the intent.
And just to, our office took a look at this, Chief Deputy, Civil Deputy Adriana Freilich and I, along with Roger and Ann, looked at this very issue. And we found that the city can make an exchange so long as the ultimate result amounts to an acquisition, improvement, or expansion of neighborhood parks, or the installation of facilities in the existing parks or neighborhood parks in Carson City. And I believe the goal of the open space program is to swap the Buzzy's property with Mr. Fagan's property for the purpose of potential trails and trail connectivity, which is consistent with Carson City Municipal Code. And we looked into this very issue. And going to Commissioner Bagwell's comment regarding the reimbursement aspect, we were talking about the 75% of the residential dwellings have to be reimbursed within 3 years. That's under Section 6 of NRS 278.4983, and we looked at that, and we also looked at Assembly Bill 25, which has currently been passed both in the Assembly and the Senate. It's our understanding that it's going to the floor for a final vote. That particular section under AB 25 applies to new construction. It doesn't apply to already existing construction because it talks about the park district created to serve the neighborhood in which the subdivision or development is located within 3 years after the date in which 75% of the residential dwelling units authorized within that subdivision or development first became occupied. So in our opinion, that relates to, the reimbursement relates to new construction. And had the legislator wanted to provide for similar reimbursement for construction other than subdivisions or developments, it could have provided so under another section. So, in our opinion, that particular section for reimbursement only applies to new construction. And we had looked at this issue very closely, and we found that the land exchange in this particular circumstance is appropriate to move forward and to be brought in front of the Board of Supervisors.
Yeah, just to clarify though, because this is really important to me, where I live, the people that moved in there insisted they would not have restrooms in that park. They said, this is our park, and we don't want restrooms because we don't want those people here. Okay, if I had lived there at the time, I would have fought it. And now we do have restrooms in parks, and there's been no complaints that I know of. So what I'm concerned about is, because residential construction tax is what builds new parks with new construction, that the intent of the law hasn't changed, whatever the intent of the law is, it's so that that park that's built is for the public. It is not for that neighborhood. Is that right? Nothing's changed in that effect?
Let me answer that question. Any park constructed, developed, purchased through residential construction tax is a public park, can be enjoyed by the public at large. Okay. Now, there are developments and subdivisions that are mandated through a development agreement to build recreation facilities, parks, common areas, open space. If the cost to build those facilities is reimbursed through residential construction tax, they are public parks that can be used and enjoyed by the general public. In the case of what is happening, it's going to happen down south here in the landscape maintenance district associated with the Schultz Ranch, that property is actually going to be deeded over to the city for ownership. There are other private developments that also build similar type of facilities, but they don't use public money to reimburse or to pay for the cost of that. They simply develop HOAs, homeowners associations, or that type of tool. Typically, those parks are owned by that subdivision, that private subdivision, and are only to be used by the residents of that area. In this case, if a swap or an exchange is made, the property that would come to the city, the 20 acres up on West Highway 50, would be public property and owned by the city. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have another comment, though. Am I missing something, or weren't we supposed to be going over the residential construction tax fund as part of the budget?
We did.
We did?
I mean, we didn't go over it, but you have it.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have lost my, I hate these. I have lost my packet, so I don't know what's in it. I forgot what's in it.
23 sheets there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? How about the public? Does the public have anything they'd like to bring forward? So, I'm gonna make a motion, and,
Brett, may I recommend something?
Sure.
As the chairman? See if someone else wants to make the
Oh.
motions.
Somebody else wanna
Sorry,
make a
just
motion?
thought I'd
Yeah, you shouldn't make no.
it's a good point.
Don't make no motions, buddy.
I support it, so I wanna make a motion. I support anybody else.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to pursue a possible land exchange with Mr. W. Michael Fagan for 20 acres of land that he owns on US Highway 50 near the Clear Creek interchange for vacant park property located at 1020 Buzzy's Ranch Road.
All in favor? All in favor, say aye.
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 No. Again,
Abstain.
my record and my comment is, I'm never gonna spend tax dollars for the way they weren't intended.
I'm abstaining.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm not comfortable with the wording on this, but my level of uncomfortableness does not prevent me from voting no, and so I'm just going to abstain.
Okay, fair enough. So, all in favor say aye, raise your hand. All nays, raise your hand. All abstain, raise your hand.
We got some of everything this time.
All right. Thank you. How's everybody feel? Does anybody want a break? Let's do a 10-minute break. We'll start at 5 minutes after 7. back. So it's item D now, is to authorize essentially our signature on a letter to support the Federal Lands Access Program, also known as FLAP. It's a grant submitted by the Carson City Public Works for various improvements along Sierra Vista Lane. Vern, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Parks and Recreation Department staff was asked by Dirk Goring, who is here with me this evening with Public Works, to review a federal land access grant, which they intend to submit for a FLAP grant. Staff received the draft application on Tuesday, March 14th, 2015, and have made several recommendations for modifications to the document. The draft grant application has been attached to your staff report for your review, and Dirk is here with us to kind of walk us through what the goals of the grant are and what they're trying to do out there on Sierra Vista Lane. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dirk, and he can continue the presentation to the commission.
Thank you. Dirk Goring, Carson City Public Works. I just got a brief presentation. So the FLAP grant that we're going after stands for Federal Lands Access Program. So we're putting in an application to improve recreational access along Sierra Vista Lane. As you may know, out there in Sierra Vista Lane has two primary recreational destinations, the Carson River and the Pine Nut Mountains. And what the grant is asking for is funds to reconstruct about 2.5 miles of roadway, starting at Pinion Hills, just after you cross the bridge of the Carson River Road, going south, and then also to improve 3 parking areas. The improvements at this time are fairly generic, but the intent of the grant is to comply with the Carson City Master Plan, the Unified Pathway Master Plan, the Carson River Parks Master Plan. So by improving Sierra Vista Lane, we feel that you're going to raise the level of safety out there for the folks using the road, as well as the folks recreating along the road. This is the first time that the Public Works Department is applying for this grant application. It is being funded by MAP 21, which is the current transportation bill. And the grant is competitive. We don't know the likelihood of success, but we're trying to put our best foot forward and put a good solid grant. There is a program committee that will be reviewing the application this summer and selecting grants for a list of funding. So hopefully we will hear something towards the end of the summer. We have met with the Carson City District BLM office, and we have received a letter of support from them. And last week we met with the Open Space Advisory Committee, and we've received a letter of support from them. And so I am here to request support from the commission. I would like to say that we have worked with Parks and Rec staff quite a bit, and they've provided great comments, and I feel that the grant application is better because of our collaboration. So I'm available for questions.
Thank you. One question I have is just to kind of better understand this. So this is a road that's it's a city road that's maintained by the city. And so ultimately, this is mainly the grant is going to just fund redoing a road that needs to be redone. But in addition, it's going to improve 3 main kind of parking areas. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
The Carson River Park Master Plan has designated an area just at the intersection of Pinion Hill and Sierra Vista Lane, so that's one of the parking areas. Then if you travel south, there's an OHV and equestrian trailhead located on the east side of Sierra Vista Lane. And then if you go a little bit farther south, on the west side of Sierra Vista Lane, there's a boat or an area for the river use.
Okay. Vern, do you have that available where we could put that on the monitor just to kind of show those locations?
No, I do not. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I have the map here, but just for the public, for people to be able to reference. So I know generally the map I have is it's kind of a photocopy, so it's not the clearest map. But do those areas have some, to what extent does that parking exist already?
There's 2 parking areas. The first parking area at the intersection is, if my memory is correct, there are no improvements. It's just an area and I believe that people do park there from time to time. I know, I've heard it's been used in the winter for sledding. When you travel south to that OHV, there is a trailhead, there's signs that has been put up by BLM. And it's graded, but it's a primitive parking area. And that's the same with the trailhead located by the river. There are, the trailhead located by the river, there's also signs and a map and some boulders to kind of keep folks contained within that disturbed area.
So the improvement would mainly be kind of gravel, that kind of stuff, in order to, like, kind of general kind of improvement, but still the natural setting.
Correct. At this time, grading the parking area, making sure there's enough room for turnaround, providing wayfinding signs, informational signs, and then also bathroom facilities, similar to the ones that are located on the Carson River Road on the west side of Sierra Vista Lane at the present time.
That's like near the Lloyd's Bridge, I think it is. Okay. And so none of the parking areas would be paved. It's just the only pavement would be just the road that would be redone.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Bagwell.
On the grant application, it has a match that's required of $104,976. Where is that match?
We took some background information. We took the application, or the request to pursue this application, to the Regional Transportation Commission in April. And so the match will be coming from the Regional Transportation Fund.
And that's in the budget that they prepared? I
can get back to you on that question. I don't know a good answer.
That's fine, because it'll come another level. Just, you'll be ready when it comes to the next level. That's fine.
Comments? Any other questions? Commissioner Adams.
When we go for these federal grants and like state lands and stuff, I just would like to try and get staff, and Bern and I have been through a couple things with some state land grants that we had, and sometimes we get restrictions put on our property or what we can do versus, undergrounding utilities and stuff like that. So I just hope you guys will take a look at that and just use a little bit of caution that we don't get followed up by federal or state regulations when we go for these grants. So we should kind of keep an eye on that kind of stuff.
Commissioner Kiefer.
Oh, thank you. I have a question. On Sierra Vista Lane, aren't there some homes out there?
Thank you. There is a subdivision at the end.
Okay.
The 2.5-mile section is the part of the road that's maintained by Carson City.
Okay.
So after that 2.5 section, that's when it gets into that rural residential subdivision.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is we had some of the homeowners before us last fall, and they were apprehensive about any improvements further on. This will not impact them, will it? I mean, it won't be near their homes?
Was that the further south?
Was this the same, further south?
I think you're referring to Golden Eagle
Okay.
Lane, which is on the south end of Prison Hill.
So it's,
Kind of you go
Well,
past
Where you
the,
cross the bridge and then you go down, there's some homes there.
yeah, but they were concerned about on the south end, the Golden
Okay.
Eagle, because Golden Eagle Lane kind of goes in and out of private and public property.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a road that they were concerned about.
So this wasn't?
No.
Same home, okay, cool. Thank you.
Just to add some information, we have worked with the homeowners association out there just to let them know what's going on, and we have received a letter of support from the president from the homeowners association out there.
Excellent.
so if this grant was not successful, where would the money come from to repave the road? Because based on some of the pictures, the road needs to be fixed. So if the grant didn't happen, where would that fit in the budget, I guess, as far as the city?
My understanding, the road is, the funds don't exist to reconstruct that road at the time, so it would leave staff looking for additional funds to try and improve that road.
Okay. Commissioner Lehman?
So yeah, my question is that subdivision's relatively small out there. Do we have any idea what the traffic count on is on that road? It doesn't seem like it's a very heavily used road, or is it?
The only traffic count I was able to find was from 2012 or 2011, but it was at 195 annual average daily trips. And that count was taken right after the intersection of Sierra Vista Lane and Pinion Hills Road. And we provided that information to the grant application because they were requesting that information. So that's the only information I have. Based on conversation with folks from the association and just as many folks as I could talk to, there's usually cars there on the weekend using those facilities.
Now, this grant, however, can't be used in the general other areas that we could have higher priority of road work. I mean, it's specific to do mitigation, right? It's not a regular, I can't go put it on Gonai Road. So, where we really need road work, but yeah.
It would have to, it has to have there has to be a road that has access to public lands. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously that road needs some work, but I guess my only concern would be, 195 cars a day. I know going up King Street would be a couple thousand probably.
One of the things that we've talked about here is that sometimes we need to be opportunistic in trying to relate and get to grants that maybe, just because of the way the grant structure the grant is structured and what they're actually asking for, sometimes, and I know when we've done this here, we've talked about this before, is that we have an opportunity to go after a grant for a particular thing. It may not necessarily be the commission's highest priority, but there is an opportunity, there's money available for grant match, and I think that's really what they're trying to do. There's no funds available to fix the road. And so they're, I think, trying to be as creative as they can. And I've been there, I've been in those shoes. So you try to be as creative as you can when you create and spin, no, maybe not spin's the right word, but at least address the questions within the application to make it look like that your project really has an opportunity to score well within the scoring criteria that they're using. And so that's what they're trying to do. They're, I mean, just like this commission, a lot of times, we just don't have a lot of money, and they're, and I wish them well. I mean, that would be a nice way to get that road fixed, but you can't, this grant will not work to fix Stewart, for example, or it won't work to fix Fifth Street. So I commend their energy and their creativity trying to make this work. And will they be successful? We don't know. We'll see what the grant committee says, but they're making an effort to do something.
Well, and if I could tag on to that too, it's kind of a unique opportunity in that this road does provide access to Carson River Park, and the improvements in Carson River Park fit along, are harmonious with the Carson River Master Plan. It also provides access to the Carson River, and the improvements of that parking lot also are spelled out in the Carson River Aquatic Trail Plan. And so, it's kind of unique that they have found a project that needs a lot of assistance in terms of funding, yet it also conforms with master plans that have been brought to you through the Park and Recreation Department.
And also, if I remember when I was reading the material and looking at it, we're going to have a parking lot there for some of the off-roading areas, and that's one part of our community I don't think that we've done too much for in the past, so I think that that's another positive on this myself.
That's the existing BLM parking lot that will be turned over to the.
All right, any other questions? How about the public? Anybody willing to make a motion? I'm gonna stay out of this one.
I had one more thing to ask. Maybe I missed it, but what dollar amount are we asking for here?
We're at we're asking, the project cost is roughly around $2 million. And so the local match from RTC is roughly around 5%. So it's about 1.9 million that the grant.
The total project's $2,099,520, $104,000, gosh, it's either an 876 or a 976, our copies are really bad, and then $1,994,000 from the grant. So it's a $2 million project, it's a big one.
Okay. Anybody want to make a, give it a stab?
For you, just because I don't want Brett to have to do it. There you go.
Commissioner Bagwell.
Okay, I move to authorize the chairperson's signature on a letter of support for a Federal Lands Access Program FLAP grant submitted by Carson City Public Works for various improvements along Sierra Vista Lane.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, I'll say nay.
Well, this is an easy vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could I have you sign that letter for Dirk before he leaves? That way I won't have to chase him down tomorrow.
Thank you. Which item are we on here?
Are we on
Disc
the
golf
disc golf?
is item E. A discussion only on the planning and fundraising progress for the disc golf course complex with Vern.
Yes, wanted to give the commission an update on where we were with this whole process. On January 5th, 2015, the Board of Supervisors set aside approximately 100 acres west of Flint Drive and Rifle Range Road as a site for the proposed disc golf course. Our department is making steady progress toward planning the disc golf course. What I've done is I've itemized the 7 different things that we have been working on, not only as a department, but also with the advocate groups to keep this thing moving along and you know, on a positive course. So for the record, just real quick, the federal lands where the golf course complex will be located, as I noted in my staff report, the land conveyance is closer, but the handout that I handed out earlier this evening to you basically says it's coming our direction soon. So it's good to see. It says sometime in May. I'm not sure how firm or how hard fast that is, but there was a joint press release by both the city and BLM that made that article happen in the paper, and you have that as a FYI handout. Second, the city has hired a consultant. This consultant group needs to do the necessary cultural clearances for the project area. The city and the Great Basin Consulting Group have submitted the necessary cultural resource clearance paperwork to both the State Historic Preservation Office, SHPO, and the Washoe Tribe as required by the city's BLM programmatic agreement. We have, which I thought was really quick response from the tribe. You'll have that in your packet. So they responded fairly quickly, which I was very surprised with, and we're appreciative of course. So we're still kind of waiting for SHPO to weigh in on this. On the fundraising front, and maybe Greg Swift is here. I'm not trying to necessarily get him up here and talk, but he stayed and been patient, so I'm assuming he's going to say something. We put together, to help out the disadvocates, a flyer that is also in your packet. We felt that it was important to send them out with information that would be consistent. Plus, we wouldn't end up in a situation where, as passionate as these disc golf course people are, we just didn't want them to start promising people something that we couldn't deliver on later. So we wanted everybody to be working off the same sheet of music, if you will. Also, I think we informed the commission a while back that Bob Fredland has given a $1,000 donation, but at this particular point, we have not received any other funding for the project. Until the club gets established and a 501c3 gets up and running, the city will be taking those donations in, and we have a grants, gift, and a donation accounts. It's tagged in the city budget, so it's not going to get lost. So, and if other donations come in of whatever the term, you know, whether it's $500 or $50 or $100 or whatever, it'll go into that account. So, until the club a club gets up and going or a 501c3 gets up and going, this gives us, you know, we don't want to turn down money. My mom said never turn down money, so, you know, we don't. What's that? Smart mom. Also, in preparation for our project's design charrette, we've had a number of our disc advocates, disc golf course advocates step up and offered to work with us on that. Kyle Swift, Kevin Halverson, Carl Moe, Del Martin, Paul Hansen, Dave Wiley, Patrick Anderson, and Greg Garver have all volunteered their time when we get that thing up and rolling. So we're real appreciative of that effort. We have been working with the city's GIS services, which come out of Douglas County, to get aerial maps taken care of. We've got a few things to tweak on them, but we're real close on that. Also, we've been out, staff's been out on the project site looking at the property in preparation for the upcoming design charrette. What we want to do is what we call an opportunities and constraint map. There's some areas that when you start looking at the design of the course, we may not want them on. For example, I'm not sure we want to have a basket on the top of a ridge. You know, from a visual aspect, plus the grades you have to do to climb up across rocks and across vegetation to get to the actual, you know, place where you'd put a flag. We don't want that, so we're going to work around those things. So we want to make sure that we have that established for them, so that'll help them design the course better, we believe. And then it is my understanding, and maybe Greg can either confirm or you know, vehemently deny this, but it's my understanding that there are one or two individuals that are working with a lawyer to put together the 501c3 document. So we're getting there. I think I said in my staff report we're targeting, maybe I didn't, but I thought we talked about having the design charrette probably sometime in early to late June is what I think we're targeting. Yes, mid-June, so it's item 4. So that's kind of where we're at with the whole thing. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to field them. Greg is here. I'm, you know, so whatever the commission would like, we're here to answer questions.
All right, thank you. I know for me, I just kind of wanted an update and wanted to make sure it's still moving, and it is, so that's good to see. And any other comments, questions? All right. Welcome, Greg.
Hi. Good to
Thanks for
see you
being
all
patient.
again. Oh, yeah, no problem. I just wanted to back up Vern. A couple things were new that I heard too. So the club is getting organized, and it is a matter again of getting some progress on the land transfer before we realize some of the things. Del Martin, who is also one of the designers, is actively talking with people about establishing the 501c3. We have donations pledged, but again, they wanted to see progress that the land actually does get transferred before they invest their money. And, you know, the design charrette, I think, will help move things forward too. But I think, as he said, at this point, it's just a wait for the land transfer. But hopefully we can move fairly quickly. I think that's going to be the thing is we'll probably have to start with 18 holes, obviously. The money aspect is another factor on establishing that 501c3. We're trying to use most of the money to buy the equipment that we need, the baskets and the tee pads to get it started first.
And one of the things we're trying to be real flexible. Greg and I have had conversations, and it may have been Dell too. I've had conversations with, because one of the things that we will be offering as a part of a whole sponsorship, you know, we'll be advertising and those kind of things. And if we are certainly open to looking at the issue of the lawyer's fees as being a potential donation, so there might be some way to even work that, even though it may not be a cash donation. It will there's maybe some ways we can work there. We're trying to be as flexible as we can with the donations and what we're trying to accomplish out there. We're not trying to, you know, again, the whole goes back to my mom's philosophy of, you know, don't turn anything down free. So if there's a way we can make this work, we will with Greg. And he's been very he's been very great to work with. All the people in the group have been wonderful to work with, and they're passionate. And I think the other thing that'll help them a lot with their fundraising is once we do have a design, actually, that they can show people and say, here's where it is on the land, and here's how it's gonna work. And so that's a tool that I think we could certainly get to you, hopefully, too, sometime this summer to start using as a tool to raise funds, so.
Mr. Chair? If I could, on terms of the 501c3, some of us are going to be meeting in a short while. We're looking at what is called the Foundation for the Betterment of Parks, which is a 501c3, or it was. We believe it probably needs to get back up to snuff. Paperwork needs to be filed, probably some fines need to be paid. We're having a meeting next week, I think it is, to talk about this, because it could be a very useful tool for an organization such as yours. In other words, if the 501c3 with the Foundation for Parks wouldn't have the money, but we would be the means by which you could, file things or do whatever it is you have to do in order to get grants, et cetera. So I'm sure that once we've had the meeting and we've decided if that's feasible, we also have an accountant who's agreed to help us, so that's great.
I'd be real interested in hearing that, so I'll maybe
Okay,
get in
well,
touch with you just to.
You can just get in touch with staff after the
Sure.
13th of May, and they'll let you know whether it's a feasibility or not.
Okay. Yeah, as Vern said, the one lawyer said he might be willing to do that with a little bit of advertising, which is what we're offering our, the people that are donating, to have some recognition at the course, so.
Well, I can tell you, people have done it without lawyers. It can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done.
The other thing too, just so the commission knows, is that because there are different avenues, like you're talking about the Foundation for Parks, we can accept the city can tax, we can put it in our tax gifts and donation account. So it's not necessarily required for them to be a 501c3. They can become a club. And we work with them. We work with other clubs. So Scott's nodding correctly out there. Okay, good. And yeah. So it's nothing that we're trying to impose on them necessarily, but it does give them the opportunity to go out and get grants on their own, and there are some benefits of having that particular status. But even the development of a club would be helpful, in getting that started as well. So we're not trying to make it difficult for them, but there are some benefits that come with the 501c3.
Commissioner Lehman? I mean, I'm sure you figured this out, but even without being a 501c3, if it's a business or a company, as long as their name's anywhere, they write it off as an advertisement, so it doesn't have
I've been
to be.
trying to tell them that, but there are a couple donors or potential donors that would prefer it being under that jurisdiction. I don't know why, but yeah, maybe the tax ID number.
It's called a tax ID number, and that's what they want.
But it can easily be written off as an advertisement. Every business has a line item for advertising.
Okay. I don't know if you saw the flyer the city did in conjunction with us, or they put out, which was a great help. But anyway, it has all that information that, it is tax deductible.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you, Greg. Thanks for being patient.
Moving on to 3F. To have the Parks and Recreation Commission chairperson or his designee present the Parks and Recreation Commission report and the Parks and Recreation Master Plan to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors at an upcoming meeting in the future. This is, I know we talked about it a little bit on the last meeting it came up, so I think we'll just go over that here now.
Yeah, no, I'd be glad to. As you indicated, once the commission at the last meeting, at the April meeting, approved the Parks and Recreation Commission's report on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And so before you leave tonight, I've got yours here. So it's all bound up, we've got it all ready to go, it's all polished up, so you're each gonna get your own individual copies tonight as you walk out the door. But what came up after the approval was a discussion, and that was spearheaded by Commissioner Curtis, and if you want to talk a little bit about that, I mean, I'm certainly willing to let you kind of take off from this point, but the idea basically is that instead of just submitting a report, maybe less is more, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, thank you. Basically, my concept, and I think the commission agrees with this, is that, yeah, we went through the master plan, and we really didn't have a lot of changes to it. So sending it to the Board of Supervisors and saying, hey, here it is. We changed to not do it annually, but do it less often, is about the extent of it. To me, wasn't worth the effort that was actually put into it. The other important piece, though, is what Vern added to his report, which is basically during the, quote, Great Recession, this is what we've accomplished. At the reduction of staff, at everything else that's been going on, these are the projects that we've been involved with. And I think that's worth a public presentation. I think it should be presented to the Board of Supervisors and for the public to see. So I just basically, and I'm very happy to work with the chair to present it if you like.
Brett, I'd like to just maybe even have a discussion in general, just from a board perspective. Many of our boards and commissions, the work or the recommendations and activities are actually reported by staff instead of the chairperson of the committees. So I'm kind of interested in a feel from you guys as whether you think that it should be the chairperson actually giving the reports. I think that all these boards and commissions and all of our volunteers work very hard, no matter what board and commission you serve on. And so I'm just wondering in general how you feel as to whether the chairman should present their recommendations and reports.
I can tell you right off that most of the Board of Supervisors meetings are during the day, and like Commissioner Long works, I worked. I would say no way should that be a requirement. If there's,
I didn't mean it as a requirement, I meant, would you like the option to be able to, as the chairman, present?
So yeah, I would second Commissioner Lehman. There's a very good chance I may not be able to do it. I know specifically this one came up because Commissioner Curtis had an interest in it, and that's part of it. And certainly I would support her in her efforts to do it. But I would expect that on an ongoing basis, as normal checks and balances, that the Parks and Recreation does give updates to whether it be the supervisors or whether whether it's at your meeting or whether it's via other emails or reports. So how much of a, I guess, need, first of all, is it to actually go to the Board of Supervisors for it? And then secondly, I would think that it's probably more something that the Parks and Recreation Department should be responsible more so than the commission itself. But if Commissioner Curtis would like to go give her perspective on it, I certainly support that.
Well, just a final comment is that when I was being reappointed to the commission, to the commission, I did tell the Board of Supervisors that I was going to try to do this, which was to review the master plan, and I'd like to say that I accomplished that in a sense, and it certainly wasn't just me by any means. So I'd be happy to accompany a staff report, or I would like to make a couple of comments, because I think there are things, and this is one thing, Lori, I hope you'll come to understand, is I see a very big difference between what the commission does and what the staff does. Most of the time, we're walking hand in hand, and most of the time, we are here to support them. But there will be times, and there can be times, where we won't. We feel that, as the public and listening to the public, that there are certain things that, maybe should be paid attention to. For example, in the capital projects. Unfortunately, we didn't have the list in front of us this time, so we couldn't really say, okay, if we've got about 70,000 worth they're going to give us, do we really, is it really the place where the people are walking in the aquatic center where we really need to do this? I think that's what we're here for. And if we're not here for that, if we're just here to, say yes, then frankly, I don't want to waste my time. So I feel very strongly about this. I think there's some things that I want to make sure the public and Board of Supervisors is aware of. Yes, all committees and commissions work hard, but I don't know if any work this hard.
I think that's kind of what my point was, is I'm trying to learn as I'm a new supervisor. I think for me, it's important that I hear from the boards and commissions, because you are out here in the field doing, kind of like our little subcommittees, researching all of this and putting all the details together. So I'm hearing different answers from different committees, but, again, I understand people that work, and I don't think requirement was never part of my thought process. What I don't want to do is preclude a committee from coming and speaking before the Board of Supervisors, or having the feeling that you're not welcome, let me say it that way, because you are.
I mean, in fairness, I see what you're trying to accomplish, because, I don't think these committees have a lot of face time in front of the Board of Supervisors, which would be a good thing, but then there's the conundrum of lots of people that probably couldn't make it to some of those meetings. But I think these committees should have more face time in front of the Board of Supervisors. I would agree with that.
Go ahead.
Well, in fact, we haven't done it as often with the Park and Recreation Commission, but some of other committees in that will report to the board on a semi-regular basis, and usually dealing with topics such as master plans, and annual work plans. There are a couple committees that we work with that by ordinance have to submit an annual work plan to the Board of Supervisors. The Cultural Commission is one, the Open Space Advisory Board is another one. And so they do, at least on an annual basis, meet with the Board of Supervisors, and that does give them the opportunity to have that face-to-face interaction that Commissioner Lehman referred to. That's not in our ordinance. It doesn't mean that can't be implemented, though.
Well, or maybe even that I look to see that the Board of Supervisors, maybe we have a once-a-year nighttime meeting, and that's all it is all the boards and commissions presenting, each of the chairmen presenting report. Again, I'm just kicking this idea out there to say, how do we engage the public to feel? I want you to feel that you are worthwhile to us. I assure you, you are. So maybe it's that we have a meeting once a year at night so that it's more feasible for you guys to attend. I don't know. Maybe just keep that in mind.
It used to be that for the budget was a much more prolonged, more in-depth process than it is now. Now they have the finance committee, or whatever the name of the group is, that sits down and basically works everything out, brings everything to the supervisors, and everybody's happy. Nobody's trying to get somebody else's police car and that kind of thing. So it's boring. No, but the committees, I think, including this one, used to meet with the Board of Supervisors on the budget. And so they have a joint meeting. I'm not suggesting that either, because that must have been rather time-consuming. But
Find a happy medium.
But it might be one way where the commission could say, okay, the department could say, this is what we've accomplished this year. Because there's no report like that goes to them and says, this is what we've done. I used to work on budgets, and they were this thick, and they were all about, all the accomplishments and the things they needed and they couldn't get, and blah, blah. And now there's no paperwork, it's just numbers, like I said earlier. And there should be some opportunity where the public knows what all these committees are doing and all these departments are doing. But in the meantime.
It's a pretty intriguing conversation, but we may be getting off topic just a little bit, so but it's a good point, but we should probably get back to the topic and agendize.
Just one quick thing, Commissioner Bagg was bringing up like an annual meeting, a little off topic, but conversely, one thing that could maybe get done is all the Board of Supervisors and the mayor and the city manager once a year comes to our meeting. That's another thing. With that said, I can make a motion.
And yeah, the other thing I was gonna say is, I think as the public, we know we could go sit in on a Board of Supervisors meeting. So without making a motion right here, Commissioner Curtis could go do a public comment. So, and I think it's good to realize that. Commissioner Lehman. Oh, public comment?
Maurice.
Maurice?
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion.
Better not say anything.
We're talking about involvement here.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to have Donna Curtis present the Parks and Recreation Commission's report on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan to the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors at an upcoming regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor, all say nay. There's no nays. See, what are we? 3G, discussion only regarding an overview by Commissioners Leanne Kiever and Donna Curtis of the Nevada Recreation and Park Society 2015 conference, which happened roughly 3 weeks ago, like coming up here.
16th, 17th?
Almost a month ago. So, yeah, go ahead.
Me?
What did you guys learn?
I learned a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the chair stated, Donna and I, along with Roger and Vern and Daria, attended the Nevada Recreation and Park Society Conference in Sparks on April 16th and 17th of this year. I attended a number of sessions. Most of them were involved with providing veterans with recreational opportunities, but I also took a class on using social media to better a public entity such as ours, and one more, creating a safer aquatic facility. Learned a number of things. One, primarily, outdoor recreation benefits our veterans, and they have found that in some cases, veterans with mental problems, the need for medicine decreases significantly when they're provided with those opportunities. Participating with the military, increases the recreational opportunities to both the civilian and the military populations while reducing the financial expenditures to both agencies. There are federal monies available to governmental recreational agencies such as ours to provide recreational opportunities to veterans. We just have to apply. Roger and I chatted about it, and that would mean we'd have to hire another staff member potentially. But there's 2 volunteer programs out there, RSVP, where we wouldn't have to pay for a professional, or the state has a program where they would pay the person because they would be training them. It's called NevadaWorks.com, and it's a system that was established under the Workforce Investment Act. And I don't know if we would be eligible. We'd have to check into it, but that would be a method by which we could obtain the additional staffing. Okay. And then we were telling the recreational director from Fallon Naval Air Station, who has offered to come speak with us and tell us how he would be willing to partner with us if we'd like. But we were telling him about how we were offering this free swimming to the PTSD veterans with 100% service disability. And he had a V8 moment. He went, water therapy, I should have thought of that. So they're going to look into providing water therapy based upon our actions at our last meeting. And let's see, he also wanted to stress, because he said a lot of people think that veterans with PTSD are violent. They are not. In fact, when they recognize that they have an episode coming on, they will leave. So there's nothing to fear, which I thought was good news. I didn't see anything to fear from the gentleman last month, but that was good news to hear. And the city of Reno, they have, they take part in the VA's grants for recreational opportunities, and they've got quite a partnership going. And if we're interested, they volunteered to help us research further. So those were good news. And then we learned about social media, and the U.S. Forest Service contracted with Cal Poly at San Luis Obispo to research how to get youth more involved in websites, social media, that type of thing. They found that the greatest enticer, if you will, were by having contests, by allowing the kids to submit photos, and by having them have their own websites that link directly to the U.S. Forest Service website. And that generated a lot of interest in Southern California for that particular website. Daria Worth from Roger's office sat in on, she took a lot of notes, and we found that very helpful. And then we went to a class on pool safety that was offered by Councilman Hunsaker, who's not a municipal employee, it's a company. And they are the leaders in pool design for recreational use throughout the country. And their primary thrust was that a safe pool not only increases fun and enjoyment, but it also reduces liability while increasing profits, which I found interesting. And the gentleman there offered to email us his presentation if any of us were interested in it. So all in all, I thought it was very beneficial. Met a lot of people from different other recreational departments, and I would say that if we have an opportunity in the future to attend, we should definitely take it.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Curtis.
Thank you. On similar lines, first of all, there's a lot we learn just because we're driving up and down with several different staff. A couple that I didn't know that well. Then we had lunch with them. Got to know everybody within, and we had a chance just to chat about issues and things like that. And I think that's very rewarding because you don't often have that opportunity. And then, of course, as Leanne mentioned, talking with the other folks from the other places. And then, let's see, I went to a seminar, and I found it very useful. It's called Busting Through Barriers with Youth Programming, but I'm afraid our youth programmer didn't. She kind of commented to me, well, that's fine, they're laying out all the problems, but we're looking for some solutions. But as a grandmother, I found that I just got through having a trip with my two teenage granddaughters and my daughter, and at times they were just there with their iPads. So can you imagine? Here you have a teen program, and kids are there whether they want to be or not. This Generation Z, they call it. And they lack face-to-face, they lack supervision at home, they have short attention spans, lack face-to-face communication, they just don't talk to each other, prefer to write than to talk. There's no team concept, really, prefer to work alone, and don't see the need to work or bond together. So put a bunch of them together and try to do a program. So I think they would have preferred a little more into, okay, now how do we handle this? How do we get these kids around? There were some
Did
suggestions.
they truly not have solutions to that, to some of those?
Well,
It was
well,
mainly just raising the question?
They did it in a sense, but nothing that I could grab a hold of. And I don't think Megan did either, to be honest with you. The theme of I think the whole theme was about veterans, pretty much. It seemed like there were several programs that concerned them, and maybe that's kind of the upcoming thing, is with all the attention being given to them, that, this is probably one of the best things we can do for them, is offering them, parks and recreation. And another seminar was incorporating the private sector ideals into public sector operations. And basically, the presenter claims that divisions within the Parks Department may be competitive and not want to work well together. Ever heard of such a thing? I don't know. But, the people in recreation, or maybe they're kind of a group, but they're kind of, what are those guys in administration doing? Type of thing. So the obvious answer is to turn the department around and treat it like it's in the private sector, which means you have to build teams. You have to have, a lot of inner back and forth going on. So the department should be more like a private company team and value each other's work for success. Blame is a killer. I like that. Somebody said that, you know. If your answer is to blame somebody else, that's not going to work. When hiring, wait for the right person to become available. I mean, just shut it down until the right person. Why not? So that was kind of good from that. One of the things that I put down that I thought was really good, because we keep talking about strategic plans all over the place. When you do a strategic plan, assign goal owners. So right now, the city is involved in putting together their strategic plan. You have your goals. Who owns them? Who's doing them? Create timelines, deadlines, and most of all, create accountability. Management should have a servant attitude. I am here for your success. Anyway, just to end, there were several vendors. I picked up a nice large brochure on dog park equipment, and that made the conference worth it.
Okay, well, thank you. Sounds like it was good in some cases, and maybe in others, maybe not as helpful, but I guess you can find that in any conference, and you can either go to the conference where they tell you what the problem is, or go to the conference where they tell you the solution, I guess, so.
That's next year's conference.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta gear up.
There's a big one in September.
All right, any public comments? All right, moving on to 4A. And we got some pictures of the MAC, so let's see the update here. Go ahead, Vern.
This is technically Roger's item, but Megan Sirocco and Scott Chapman were out on the project site today. Today was the big day of the big pour, where they went ahead and poured the actual slab for the gym itself. It looks like the ice skating rink. So, they brought the big trucks in, the pump trucks, the concrete trucks, and away they go. This is a shot from probably close to the lobby area looking into the gym. If you want kind of a reference point where the future lobby will be. And then this is looking in the north. You'd be located in the northeast corner of the gym looking to the southwest. And you can see all the different concrete. Now, one of the other things, this is Centennial, so we're going to get out of that. I'm going to get out of that. Come on, get me out. I think I am. Now, this is the cool thing. This is the cool thing. Let's see if I can get this to work. All right, give it a minute. Here we go. Yes, we have a video. I'm working on it.
So let me go to the side and see.
Let me see here. Here we go. There you go. This is the video. See all those great equipment, and that's a close-up action of the concrete pouring. They started at 3 o'clock this morning. They had to get special permission from the city to start at 3 o'clock this morning, and and according to Megan's email, I didn't bring it with me, I should have, they poured over 330 cubic yards of concrete to put this floor in today. And they finished. Now I got one more for everybody. Maybe I can make this one a little quicker since we did it. Let's see. This is the fun one. I'd like to ride one of those little guys. The
wow, that's the way I'm voting.
a Zamboni. All right, there you go. I think that'd be just so fun to ride one of those babies around.
What do they call it?
I don't know what the name is, but it sure looks cool. And basically what they're doing is they're finishing the surface of the concrete.
Wow, 3 of them out there?
Yeah. And you have handwork there on the right-hand side. They had some guy doing some handwork right along the edge. But anyway, that's what Megan was out there and shared with me, and I put it on the computer and wanted to share it with you. So you can see we're moving along.
Website. Put it on the That on the
Yeah.
Carson Proud website, that'd be a good one.
But I was gonna say also, I know on the front page, there's the MAC information. If you can add it to that of carson.org, it would be good too. Just kind of little.
Carson Now?
The
Carson.org.
Carson Proud, we have a new
Oh.
website, Carson Proud.
We were
All
saying
right.
also in addition
Carson,
to.
Carson Now
If,
also. Yeah.
well,
Or-
they can, yeah, on your,
We could put it both.
Yep. Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great.
Yeah, those are fun.
Perfect timing.
I took the adage is that a picture's worth 1,000 words.
All right. Public comment? We got nothing.
Actually, the question was, is everything on schedule? As of last week, I think we were actually about a week ahead of schedule. And just a little comment about the pour, as Vern mentioned, they started at 3 a.m. in the morning. I was told by the, Darren Schultz, today, our Public Works Director, that the contractor told him that this has become the biggest pastime for the seniors lodging. And he said they were up at early in the morning before the sun came up, and you could see the lights come on in their apartments, and they were standing out in the balcony watching the work being done. So we got a bunch of supervisors up there in this.
That's good.
I was just gonna say,
Holler at 'em.
we woke them up.
Yeah, no, they were all pretty
I
excited
think
about it.
they're probably just on the way to breakfast, so.
Could be.
All right, well, thank you. Any public comment? Okay.
I have a little something I'd like to
Oh.
say regarding the MAC Center.
Yeah.
While I was standing out there during the groundbreaking, I could see the relief on Vern and Roger's face. Because I think they were about 5 years ahead of me when I got involved
Hey,
in it.
to Chuck, if you would, hit your mic.
Anyways, I got the great idea that I was going to do something for you guys. So I built a couple of walking sticks for the both of you, and all the commissioners tonight have signed them.
Bring them
And
over.
I would like to personally thank you guys for sticking with it and the dedication that you guys have put in for, what, 12 years now?
Yeah, well,
The heck is that?
10 years anyways.
And you get the work one, Roger.
Because I'm probably get the work personality.
Yes.
Oh, this
And this is for Norm being so straight-laced. Plus, I've watched all the pictures of you guys over the years on the walking trails and up when you're participating in it. And
This is nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for
Thank
signing
you.
it.
Thank you.
thank you, guys.
Very special.
You know, this is also gonna be good.
Do you mind taking a sec?
The other thing now is I have some defense against Scott when he comes across the hallway, so thank you from that particular perspective.
Thank you for Vern and Roger for their efforts on the MAC Center.
Okay, lean on those suckers.
And the,
Come over a little bit towards Roger.
the pennies and the copper on there are crushed at the children's museums, by the way.
All right. Send it out.
There we go.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Adams. That's a nice gesture.
Since it's a present evening, I've got presents for you. Don't forget your report before you go home.
All right, any other announcements and requests for information? Commissioner Kiever.
I've got two, actually. Last month, Roger, we were over in Galena Park, and we noticed that the doggy-doo bags, Washoe County entered into a partnership with one of the local pet stores. The pet store provides the doggy bags, and they get to do the free advertising, and the park system puts them throughout the parks. I was thinking maybe perhaps we might enter into such an agreement if we could find a pet store here, because that would, I imagine we spend a lot on doggy bags. So just, I have this bag if you'd like it. Well, oh, all right. And then I saw this on Carson Now about the memorial in Sonoma Park. Can you give us an update on that? Or is it just whatever is in the paper is in the paper?
For the record, Scott Fahrenbrick, Deputy Director. There's a gentleman in town who is working on a memorial. It's a granite bench, and it's for a gal that passed away, and they are commemorating her life. And he's starting a fundraiser, and I know that he's doing some auctions. He's auctioning off some guns and some other things, and it's kind of a grassroots fundraiser. And he's been working with me, and right now we're at the infant stages of it. I can't remember the gal's name, but you probably have it over there.
Anne Marie Bozen?
Okay. Yeah, he had mentioned her name to me. And so right now, he is researching different granite benches that he can purchase. And I asked him to research the installation of them because you just can't put them on the grass. You have to have a concrete foundation. So he's working on that, and then he's going to get back with me. And I told him that, you know, Parks staff would help, you know, with the installation of it. And he wants to get enough donations to have it engraved and then have a ceremony. So it's at Sonoma Park. So as it gets closer, we will involve the commission and let them know. But right now, he's at the stage where he's just seeking donations. So, okay.
I think it's a worthwhile project, and I'm glad that we're getting involved.
Yeah, it looks like a very worthwhile project.
Don't leave it at your doggy bag.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the quickest delegation.
Got another one? Commissioner Lehman.
So this is a little bit a school board update and members announcement. Commissioner Cassiopo wasn't here, but yeah, I know last year we talked a little bit how we had the state championship track meet here, and Joel said it brought in about $1 million local impact to the economy. So rumor is now that we'll be the permanent host of that event. So it'll happen. It'll happen every other year because it goes north south north south. But it'll be something that we have here every other year, which is a pretty big event that brings in a lot of people from around the entire state. So.
Maybe along, oh, I'm sorry.
I was just curious, there's no plan on going to Reno for it. It's going to come to Carson.
I guess nobody in Reno wants to do it, and
Okay.
we did a real good job, and yeah, even Joel helped out with it last
good.
time. And it should be here every
Every other year.
on the even years every year, at least for now.
Oh, very good.
Kind of along the same lines with the high school, the state swim meet will be here in 2 weeks. So that's another opportunity. That'll bring a lot of folks up from Las Vegas. It rotates as well. And this year, our pool is hosting it. The regionals are this weekend, and then the following weekend is the state tournament. So it'll be here as well.
And that would be throughout the entire weekend?
Yes.
Okay, so pool's essentially closed to the public for that time? Okay. Any other comments?
Oh, yeah. Since we're talking about regional events, I was just down in Long Beach for my granddaughter's gymnastics regional and managed to get a card from the people that put it on. I'm going to send it off to Joel. So when we get the MAC ready, maybe we could have that here.
All right. Anything else? Anything, future agenda items? I don't have anything. Anybody else? All right. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.